What's going on, everybody? Welcome in to the Locked On Reds podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Carr. Thank you so much for joining me today. We got a packed show for you today. Going to break down the pitching matchups between the Cardinals and the Reds as they begin this hugely pivotal three-game series, the final three games between the Reds and the Cardinals in 2021. Man, I can't believe we're saying this. It feels like just yesterday was opening day whenever they started against each other. And now here we are, the final series of the year. Huge series for both teams, huge playoff implications when it comes to the NL wildcard race. We will talk about all of that and more. Plus, Lucas Smith will join me later on to talk this series and just talk about the season as a whole as it pertains to the NL Central. That's on today's podcast that is brought to you by Spotify Green Room. Download the app today, and you can join all kinds of media personalities like myself there on the Spotify Green Room app. That's Spotify Green Room. They're changing the way that we talk sports.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Reds podcast today. Thank you for finding me. If you do not already follow the podcast, make sure that you do on your favorite podcasting app. You can also subscribe right here on the YouTube channel if you haven't already done so. Thank you to those who do, and thank you to everybody who gets involved on the comments section on Twitter and interacts with me. It's been a fun season. I know that there's been plenty of ups and downs and plenty of frustrations, as well as plenty of things to celebrate when it comes to this Cincinnati Reds team. And we've got a lot more to go because we're in this stretch run that is just going to be hugely stressful, pivotal. Hopefully, it's going to be successful at the end. We'll talk about that every single day. That way you don't miss anything. Make sure you're subscribed. You can also follow me on Twitter, like I mentioned, Twitter, at Jeff Carr with 3 Fs. And you can follow the show at Locked On Reds. And save the Locked On Reds line number into your phone for comments, questions, reactions, whatever you've got at 513-549-0159. All right, this series is hugely pivotal between these two teams, and really the stakes are just as high whether you're Lucas and you're talking about the Cardinals or you're myself and you're talking about the Reds. And we're starting tonight with a huge pitching matchup. The man Tyler Mahle is on the mound, and this is no ordinary Mahle because this is road Mahle. Tyler Mahle on the road is something else. We've talked about his numbers specifically, but like you look at his last two road starts coming against Milwaukee and Miami. If you put them together, he's got 12 and 2/3 innings pitched, 3 earned runs total, 9 hits total allowed, and 14 strikeouts. Dude loves pitching away from Great American Ballpark. His last start did come at home against the Tigers. He gave up 4 earned runs and 5 innings pitched, though the team ended up winning that game because they just scored so many runs. But overall, looking for a good game from Tyler Mahle today. He has been one of the best, if not the best pitcher on the Reds team. I think it's kind of between him and Miley, which is phenomenal because, Mahle or Miley, Miley or Mahle, Mahle, Miley, Mahle, Miley. If you say it quick enough, it almost sounds like you're saying the same word. And Wade Miley and Tyler Mahle have really led this pitching staff all year. And I'm looking for a good night tonight. We're going to talk about John Lester in a minute. That's who Tyler Mahle is opposing. Pitching on Saturday will be Luis Castillo. You want to talk about bad luck. Luis Castillo, if he didn't have bad luck, he'd had no luck at all because his last 3 starts have been pretty good. We're talking about quality starts in each and every one of them. He's pitched at least 6 innings, 3 straight starts, a total of 18 1/3. He's allowed a total of 6 earned runs in those 18 innings, and he's had a total of 21 strikeouts as opposed to just 13 hits in those 18 1/3 innings. Can you guess what his record is, though? It's 0-3. That's why pitching wins and losses are kind of silly when you break it all down, because in these last 3 starts for Luis Castillo, the team has scored a grand total in each game of 1 run. 1 run per game the last 3 starts that Luis Castillo has done. I don't care who you are. If you're Randy Johnson, it's going to be hard to get wins in those games. You've got to score runs, and that's really what it boils down to with this Reds offense. I mean, they scored 1 run to end the series against the Cubs. That's why they lost. And I mean, ultimately Brad Brock giving up that home run on a nice little slider that was supposed to hit the back door, didn't quite do it because, Hayward just absolutely destroyed that. But whatever. I mean, you got to score more runs. I don't even know that there is a more technical way of saying that. We can't break it down and be like, well, they're not doing this. Well, then just score more runs. Luis Castillo has pitched phenomenally as of late, and he's getting no help whatsoever. So that is going to be Saturday's start. He is going up against Miles Michaelis. The only win that the Reds got in that series at Great American Ballpark a week ago against the Cardinals was against Miles Michaelis. Talk about that in a minute. And then on Sunday, sunny Gray. It's going to be sunny on Sunday as Gray takes the mound in St. Louis. He has been all right as of late as well. His last start, he kind of got pulled a little bit early simply for the fact that runs were at a premium and David Bell felt like he needed to pull him. So he only pitched 5 innings. He's pitched 5 innings in 2 straight starts. He did have 6 against Milwaukee on the road in his or 2 starts ago. So when you break those down, last 3 starts for Sonny Gray, you've got 16 innings, 4 earned runs allowed, only 8 hits allowed in those 16 innings, and you've got a total of 17 strikeouts. He's been phenomenal. Again, great pitching performances, not getting the run scored, although the Reds have won 2 of his last 3 starts. They didn't beat the Cubs there as they lost 4-3. But we'll look for a good performance from him on Sunday. And again, it all boils down to the lineup. What will they do here in St. Louis? Jesse Winker's on a rehab outing this weekend, reportedly. Hopefully it won't last that long, and they'll get him back for the Pirates and the Dodgers next week. This is kind of critical because the lineup has just been floundering so much. And we're going to talk about this Cardinals pitching staff here in a minute, but the Cardinals lineup has actually been performing pretty well. I saw on the Reds Content Plus Morning Spin newsletter today that over the last month, they've been the second best lineup in the major leagues. And you're talking about a couple of guys who have really broken out. Paul Goldschmidt has always been a good hitter, but Paul Goldschmidt's been hitting pretty well as of late. Tyler O'Neill, big time for them in that lineup. And you've got a couple of other dudes who are hitting pretty well too. Tommy Edman isn't as good as he was in 2020, but he's still being pretty solid. And Yadier Molina always likes to get his pound of flesh whenever the Reds play him. So we'll see what happens with this Reds pitching staff in St. Louis. Coming up, we'll talk about St. Louis's pitching staff, the 3 probable starters for them in this one. Before we talk about that, though, I wanted to let you know that when it comes to talking about things that are slow, it's just right for vacation. You want to talk about a sloth, or maybe you're describing QuickBooks, more like slow books. If sucks you in and slows you down with manual processes, integration difficulties, and glitchy delays that leave you scrambling for the numbers you need, now is the time to make the switch to NetSuite by Oracle, the #1 financial system, because NetSuite gives you visibility and control of your financials, inventory, HR, e-commerce, and more. It's everything you need to grow all in one place. With NetSuite, you can automate your processes and close your books in no time, no matter how big your business grows. Failing to switch to NetSuite will leave you stuck trying to make some sense of your books while your competitors sprint ahead. 93% of surveyed businesses increase their visibility and control since switching to NetSuite. And right now, special financing is back. NetSuite is offering a one-of-a-kind financial program only for those ready to switch today. Head to netsuite.com/lockedon right now. Get special financing at netsuite.com/lockedon. That's netsuite.com/LOCKEDON. You can also check out the best tasting protein bar on the market at built.com. And you can use the promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your next order. I've been telling you guys about Built Bar forever. And if you have not taken advantage of this promo code, I urge you to do it right now because your snack game will just be elevated to the major leagues. We're all looking to kind of maybe lose some weight, maybe get some little, get a little bit healthier in our lives. And I hesitate to use the word D, but maybe we're on a diet. Built Bar fits into pretty much any diet you can think of because it's got less than 4 grams of fat, less than 4 grams of sugar, and up to 18 grams of protein. Plus, we're talking about 120 to 130 calories per bar. A protein bar as well that tastes like a candy bar. You're not going to get that weird, chalky mouthful, and you're going to get plenty of flavor. When you're talking about flavors like cherry barcia, coconut, they've got peanut butter brownie, mint chocolate brownie. They've got amazing fruit flavors like raspberry and strawberry. Check them out today at builtbar.com and use the promo code LOCKED15. That's built.com. But if you type in builtbar.com, it'll send you to built.com and the promo code LOCKED15 to save 15% off your next order. Get a mix box, get one box of one flavor, and get a whole bunch of your favorites at built.com. And use that promo code LOCKED15 to save 15% off your next order. All right, pivotal 3-game series. I'm going to say it until I'm blue in the face because when you're talking about the Reds or you're talking about the Cardinals, the Reds could put the Cardinals away with a good series. Maybe not put them away with 2 out of 3, but if you sweep them, it's over. You knock the Cardinals out of this wild card race. I think that's going to be really tough to do, though, because the Cardinals are playing some good baseball right now, and the Reds, while they seem to show us glimpses that they are trying to play good baseball, they still continue to not play good baseball. And they've really got to climb out of the cellar. That it's getting late. We said back in May, it gets late early, but it's late and it's getting late. And if you start losing more than they're already losing, this is going to be a very, very dismal end to the season. You can turn that around this weekend if you're the Redlegs heading to St. Louis. The thing of it is, the probable starters are exactly the same as last series, and the Reds took 2 out of 3 in that one. And I erred when I said that the Reds beat Miles Mikolas. They beat J.A. Happ, who they're playing on Sunday. They did a pretty good job against Miles Mikolas and scoring runs and stuff. They just didn't get the same pitching performance on the other side. Firstly, though, let's look at tonight's probable starter for the Cardinals, Jon Lester. He's a guy that I started off by kind of joking about the Red Birds getting older at the trade deadline because they traded for him and they traded for J.A. Happ, and both of those guys have been pitching for a long time. This is the 15th year in the major leagues for Jon Lester. He's been around. And in his last 3 starts, I kind of looked at that for Luis Castillo, Sonny Gray, and Tyler Mahle. So let's look at that for these guys. For Jon Lester, his last 3 starts have been pretty impressive as well. One of those coming against the Reds. He pitched against the Tigers, the Reds, and the Brewers. All total, he's pitched about 16 2/3 innings. Not about. He's pitched 16 2/3 innings. He's given up 14 hits, only 3 total earned runs, 1 earned run in each game. He does have 6 walks. He's had 2 walks per start, and he's had 11 strikeouts. He's just pitching very efficiently, and we saw it in the last game that Lester and the Reds played together. The Reds weren't getting very many long at-bats against him. I think they just averaged a shade under 4 pitches per at-bat against Jon Lester. And if you kind of blow it up a little bit and you look at his career against the Reds, he likes pitching against them. He's thrown 21 starts against the Redlegs for 124 1/3 innings total. He's only recorded, and I know I don't talk about pitchers' win-loss records very often, but in 21 starts, Jon Lester has only been beaten by the Reds twice. I mean, that's insane. That is efficiency beyond all other. And when you're talking about efficiency in those 124 1/3 innings, he has 28 walks allowed to the Reds, 112 strikeouts. He has allowed 12 home runs, but again, that's not very much when you're looking at 124 innings pitched. So, in a 3.62 ERA in that time. So, he likes pitching against the Reds. So I think we're going to see another struggle of a start tonight for this lineup that has really been shut down as of recently. Jon Lester's been pitching pretty well. Again, I told you, his last 3 starts, in each start, he's allowed 1 run in each start. That's pretty much where the Reds are as far as their lineup goes. Now on Saturday against Luis Castillo, Miles Michaelis will be pitching. He's kind of had a rough year. I mean, he only pitched once in May, and he was on the IL for most of this season, not coming back until August 20th. He's only had 4 starts since coming off the IL, and his last 3 starts have been a struggle. He's only pitched a total of 12 and a third innings in these last 3 starts, and he's allowed at least 3 earned runs in each of those starts. 3 earned runs, 4 earned runs against the Reds, and 4 earned runs against the Dodgers, in which they lost that game back on September the 6th. He's not really striking out guys either. He's got 9 total strikeouts in his last 3 starts, but he is limiting the walks. He's only got 4 walks allowed, just been the hits. He's given up 18 hits in his last 3 starts. So there's going to be lots of contact had tomorrow by this lineup. Maybe that is time for them to put up some runs, maybe a shot for them to win game 2 after a struggle in game 1 against John Lester. And then finally, J.A. Happ will be pitching on Sunday against Sonny Gray. You'll remember him because that was the game that the Reds did win in that Cardinals series, because they touched him up and they hit him hard. In game 2 of that doubleheader, they got 7 earned runs off 8 hits, 2 walks. They did have 2 homers, and that was all in just 1 inning pitched for J.A. Happ. Now, he came back out. He pitched against the Dodgers on September the 7th and lost that game too. He gave up 4 earned runs in 5 innings this time, but 7 hits allowed. He did not allow a walk, though, but he did allow 2 homers again. So Saturday, Sunday, maybe make some hay against Michaelis and Happ. And if you somehow work a win against John Lester, something that the Reds don't do very often, then you might be able to talk about a winning series. Dare I say? I'm not gonna say it, because this lineup has not been worthy of making bold predictions for a series. I'm hoping for 2 out of 3 for the Redlegs. They can survive, they can hang on, they can continue to clinch and just hang on for dear life to their playoff hopes. If they end up losing 2 out of 3, they can't get swept, though. You get swept, we're going to start talking about some dark days at Great American Ballpark. Hopefully that's not what we're talking about. All right, coming up here in just a minute, I've got Lucas Smith from the Locked On Cardinals podcast to talk about this series, but also kind of look back at the season and talk about, because this is the final 3 games between the Cardinals and Redlegs here in 2021. Before we talk about that, though, I want to tell you about betonline.ag. If you have not already done so, get off the bench and get in the game and start making some cash off your sports knowledge today at betonline.ag. Head on over there with the promo code Locked On, and you can set up your profile and get 100% more on your initial deposit. So if you put in 50, they'll give you another 50. You put in 100, they'll give you another 100. I mean, 100% is pretty easy math. It's just whatever you gave in, they're going to double it just for using that promo code Locked On. And you've got awesome lines when it comes to Major League Baseball, like money lines, run lines. They've got over-unders and things like that. You can make some money off your sports knowledge too with the NFL starting up. If you're a football fan like myself, you can check that out today at betonline.ag. And I'm feeling a tip today. I was looking at this matchup earlier today, and I really thought, and I'm trying to find it right now, having trouble finding that. I love the internet. Okay, here we go. I was looking at this. The Nationals travel to the Pirates today, and you can get the Nationals money line at minus 105. It's almost a value. It's almost at plus 100. And I like the matchup for this Nationals team against the Pirates. I know that neither team has anything to play for. That's kind of where I like to focus on some late MLB season betting. You look at 2 teams that have nothing to play for. So what are you going to get out of it? You're going to get some interesting baseball, maybe good baseball. Hard to say, but I'm looking at the Nationals and the Pirates. I'm taking the Nationals money line. You should too. The Nationals minus 105 to beat the Pirates today in Pittsburgh. That's betonline.ag. Set up your profile with the promo code Locked On. You'll get 100% more on your initial deposit. Betonline.ag. The promo code Locked On. And lastly, too, I know that, we're in 2021 here. We want to bring all of our entertainment options under one television screen. And DirecTV can help you out with that. Check out DirecTV Stream, because if you're like me and you're watching the game on the television, you've got highlights on your phone, you're tweeting and all that stuff. Maybe you've got a tablet to watch your streaming shows, and you've got your neighbor's best friends log in for the good stuff. Stop it. Stop that nonsense. Bring your television into the 21st century with DirecTV Stream. Head on over to directtv.com today, and you can get all of your options, whether you're talking about sports, streaming, movies, television, reality TV, all that great stuff on DirecTV Stream. Check it out today at directtv.com and stop loading up your bandwidth with all of these multiple devices trying to do all the same thing. That's DirecTV Stream at directtv.com. Alrighty. So you've heard from me breaking down this series here, the Reds and the Cardinals in St. Louis. But just for this last segment of today's podcast, I wanted to bring in our friend Lucas Smith from Locked On Cardinals to break it down. And we're going to kind of look and, well, firstly, before we jump into the meat and potatoes of this, Lucas, how you doing, man?
I'm good, Jeff. I am fantastic. Ready for weekend series. 3 days ago, I said the season was over for St. Louis, and now they're back in the playoff hunt. Baseball is crazy. We flip-flop, but I'm excited for it. How are you doing?
This month has been crazy. I'm doing pretty well. I told you I just happened to get MLB The Show, so I'm kind of distracted a little bit today. But yeah, we got a podcast to do because we have a huge series coming up this weekend. It is the final 3 games of the year between our 2 ball clubs, and they couldn't mean more. I mean, if you'd asked me after opening day when I froze my butt off trying to get a s'mores fry box and sitting in right field, like teeth chattering, couldn't feel my toes by the end of the game, watching Luis Castillo give up 1,000,000 runs and the Reds end up losing what turned into a barn burner of a game, I was like, boy, this is going to be an interesting year. And here we are. It's very interesting because we were expecting the Reds to be good. We thought that the Cardinals were going to be good. But firstly, and knowing what we know now, obviously, looking back at our season predictions, what about this division? Like, I did not see any one team running away with it the way that the Brewers have.
No, and to be honest with you, I think that the biggest disappointment in my mind is the St. Louis Cardinals. Even if the Cardinals happen to make their way to the postseason in the second wild card spot, everybody thought, or at least in my opinion, the consensus was that the Cardinals were going to be a favorite for the National League Central Division title, not just, scratching and clawing for a wild card berth. I think we all expected Pittsburgh to be Pittsburgh. I thought Chicago was no higher than a 4th place team. And the Reds have overperformed slightly, in my opinion. I'm not saying that I predicted them to be terrible, but I think that they've overperformed, and Milwaukee blew expectations out of the water. So it was a combination of all those things coming together for a perfect storm. And obviously, in a 162-game marathon, so many things contribute to all these facts that I just mentioned. But for Milwaukee, it was historical pitching that really set them apart. Cardinals couldn't get past a couple key injuries in the month of June, had a really bad June, a 370 winning percentage in that month. And the Reds have treaded water a little bit after having a hold of the second wild card spot for a short while there. And, all 3 of these teams will find themselves fighting for, at bare minimum, a playoff spot. But you never know how it's going to turn out. I don't think anybody, if you would have told me that Adam Wainwright was going to be, in my opinion, in contention for a top 5 or top 10 Cy Young Award finish, I would have laughed in your face. As high as I was on Wainwright, just so many weird things have happened this year. And, here we are, September the 10th, Cardinals and Reds separated by just 2 games.
Don't tell anybody, but after those first 2 blowout wins against the Dodgers against the Cardinals, I actually bet on Adam Wainwright and the Cardinals to win that game 3. So
he's like
yeah,
historically
don't
good coming after like a losing streak. I'll have to look up the stats later, but he's won he's started 6 or 7 games this year following a losing streak. He's won all 6 or 7 of those games. So it's crazy. So if you are looking to make a bet on Bet Online, if the Cardinals have a losing streak going into an Adam Wainwright start, bet on Adam Wainwright.
He's been their stopper, and so's Wade Miley for the Reds, and Miley's not pitching today. In fact, the probable starters for this series are pretty much the same as last time. So if you want to hear what we said about these probable starters, go check out our last crossover.
Right.
Because we've got John Lester in game 1, there's Miles Michaelis in game 2, and J.A. Happ in game 3, and that's pretty much how it turned
The
out. Although I
exact
think
same
Wade
three.
Miley did pitch in the last series, so
Yeah, Miley and
that's
Michael
flip
have
flop.
paired up in the last series, but for the Cardinals,
That's
it's
what
the
it
same
was.
three in the same order. So
Same three in the same order. Hopefully, it's not deja vu because that Lester game was frustrating. The Reds couldn't touch him, and actually, he pitched pretty well in his last start too. So, I'm interested to see how this series goes because, kind of like you said, you thought the Cardinals were out of it. The Reds have really been floundering lately. Yesterday, or 2 days ago, they were off yesterday, but 2 days ago they scored one run. It was the eighth time in like the last 12 days that they
wow,
scored one run. And it's just been a struggle for them to score it all. And probably the easiest answer, though I don't think it's the whole picture, but the easiest answer is they're missing Jesse Winker. And the reports are that he's doing a rehab stint this weekend, and they don't think he's going to need too many games, so he should be back, but he won't be back for this series. So to see how this lineup fares when you've got a lot of guys, and it's funny because I've seen a lot of complaints on Twitter and in the comments section about David Bell's lineup construction, but I mean, really, who else are you going to put out there? You cannot put Jesse Winker out there. He's hurt. Nick Senzel is on the Phantom IL. I don't. I think he's hurt. I think they're just saying that they're done with him, which is unfortunate because we're talking about a very, very high draft pick that is just not going to pan out. He's going to end up playing for somebody else next year in some way, shape, or form. I definitely. If you were to ask me at the beginning of the season if I saw Nick Senzel in a Reds uniform in 2022, I said absolutely. Now, if you were to ask me, I said no way. I don't think he's going
yeah.
to be a Red next year. It's just been weird how that whole situation's gone down this season. But to see that the way the Reds have constantly clawed back from numerous situations where plenty of people declared them as left for dead, not going to make the playoffs. Well, here we are, and here I am getting an eyelash in my eye. This is perfect timing. But yeah, so maybe that is a sign. I don't know. Hopefully not.
Yeah.
This is going to be a very important 3-game series. When you look at the Cardinals for right now, what is a success from this point? Because, like you said, you expected them to contend for the division. That's not happening. It's wild card or bust now. What has to happen for this to be a success for the Cardinals?
It starts with this series. They got to win this series because the Reds can put the Cardinals. Again, I feel like I've said this about 4 or 5 times in the last 4 or 5 episodes, but the Reds could put the Cardinals out of the playoff race for good if they win this series. Put the Cardinals back 5 games back. I think they'll have just over 2 weeks of baseball played at that time. Doesn't look very good, especially when you consider the fact the Cardinals are going to play the Brewers. See, 4 and 3 is seven more times this season. That doesn't always bode well for teams, especially playing in Milwaukee Park or whatever they call that stadium now. So it starts with this weekend beating the Reds, and then the Cardinals have an opportunity to really sink the Mets next week as well, and then they have a golden opportunity by playing the Padres. So the Cardinals really control their own destiny here in the next 9 games. This is a very important 9-game stretch. In my opinion, and this might be stating the obvious, but after this 9-game stretch, we will know if the Cardinals are going to be in the postseason hunt. Because I've talked about this. I think I talked about this last time we talked. There's a difference between being in the hunt and being mathematically eligible for the playoffs. So
Yeah.
it's a matter of can the Cardinals actually stay in the hunt for a postseason spot. But to the point of can they find success? A second wild card berth is not a successful season for the expectations this team had. And I get it that this team had injuries. Everybody has injuries. Everybody has to deal with this stuff. So now, worst case scenario, they don't make it. Best case scenario, like you mentioned, is that second wild card spot. That a deep postseason run is going to be required for, in my opinion, for me to call this season a successful season with the combination of the expectations coming in, the Nolan Arenado acquisition, the starting pitching expectation or pitching overall has kind of floundered a little bit, especially in the bullpen the last number of weeks. So in order for this season to be a success, in my opinion, a deep October run is required, but it all starts this weekend. The Cardinals have a prime opportunity to control their own destiny, to stay in the hunt, and to knock some other teams out.
Same but different for the Reds. I think that, it starts with this series, like you said. If they win 2 out of 3, you don't mathematically eliminate the Cardinals, but you really put enough distance between the Reds and the Cardinals that you feel a little bit better about it. Because right
Right.
now, if the worst happens from a Reds standpoint and the Cardinals sweep the series, then they flip flop. And that would just be murder. I mean, Reds fans are all already conditioned for the worst. In fact, Cincinnati sports fans as a whole. So everybody is bracing for that to happen. In fact, I think if you took a random poll of Cincinnati sports fans, I think there would be just as many optimistic people as there would be people who think this series is going to be a Cardinal sweep. I
Mhm.
don't think that. I think that it's going to be 2 out of 3, one way or the other. I don't think either one of these teams are getting swept at this point in the season, but I also think that the Reds have enough question marks that it's hard for me to sit here and say one way or the other whether they're going to win because they just don't score. They've had fantastic pitching performances. Even Vladimir Gutierrez, he was getting into trouble, but he limited the damage against the Cubs. He only pitched 5 innings, but he pitched a good 5 innings, and they just can't seem to get out of their own way. I mean, Luis Castillo in his last start was phenomenal. They gave him 1 run. In fact, I looked at it like his last, I think it was like last 6 starts or something like that. He's won 2 of them, and the other 4, he's gotten 1 run or less of support. So it's been complete like Jekyll and Hyde whenever Castillo's on the mound. So I have no idea what we're going to get from that because he himself has not been Jekyll and Hyde. It's been the lineup. And it
Mhm.
doesn't matter how good you pitch. If your team doesn't score, you're not going to win. It's
That's a good,
really deep baseball analysis there, but
nothing but the best here on the Locked On Network.
yeah, exactly. Analytics, hashtag analytics. But when I look at this Red season, I wanted them to be a playoff team. They're in the hunt. They're playing meaningful baseball in September. But for me to think this is a success, they not only have to make the wild card, but they got to get to the NLDS. I don't
Mhm.
even require a deep postseason run at this point. This city as a whole, on sports in general, is so starved for postseason success, whether it be the Bengals, the Reds, the Bearcats, anybody, like somebody win a postseason game. Why not the Reds? Let's make the wild card and do this. But it's looking like it's so far off right now. They just got to focus on tonight's game against the guy who, honestly, whenever Mike Schilt took him out in the last matchup, I thought that he was silly for taking out John Lester. And here we go, another matchup. We'll see
He's
what
taken him out
happens.
early a couple different times, to be honest with you. Even his most recent start, you mentioned it against the Brewers, I think it was. He only went
Five
five
and
and
a
a third
third, I think.
inning.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was really a short outing. And you mentioned Reds fans having a problem with David Bell. Mike Schilt. You look on Cardinal Twitter. He's not a very popular man in those spheres. So definitely some questionable decisions. Also, I apologize. My light just went out as we're recording. So if it got darker, I do apologize. Kind of freaked out for a moment. It's charging too, which doesn't make any sense. But anyways, yeah, I think that it's easy for us to kind of say, oh, over these next X amount of games, you can see a lot. But like you mentioned, it starts tonight. You got to take it one. It's the old cliche: take it one game at a time. Right? Every player is going to be saying that. Every team that's in postseason contention, especially the mess that is the AL wild card, is going to be saying, we're not scoreboard watching. We're taking care of our own business, taking it
Right.
one game at a time. We're all human. We all scoreboard watch. I do it. The announcers do it. The players do it. So it's something that we're going to have to remind ourselves. I have to remind myself of taking it one game at a time. You know, Call me crazy, but as a Cardinal fan, you got to be feeling pretty good about this weekend series against Cincinnati, since they were somehow able to take 2 out of 4 against the Dodgers this week.
And I think too, whoever wins this series is just chomping at the bit because if you look at that schedule for the San Diego Padres to end this year, like I love Javi, but Javi has got to be very frustrated and kind of worried about the
Yeah.
rest of the season because all they do is play the Dodgers and the Giants, and I think they sprinkle in the Braves in the middle there. So
Well, it's
that's gonna
crazy. I think that there are a couple teams that only play like 3 other teams in the last 3 weeks. Because like
right.
the Cardinals play, like I said, the Brewers 7 times and the Cubs 4 times. One of those being a doubleheader makeup. But I just feel like there could be a better way to do the scheduling of like not playing the same team like twice in 2 weeks. Because earlier in the year, the Cardinals played the Nationals and the Phillies like twice within a 4-week span. It's just like I don't know, scheduling doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But you get
No.
scheduled the games, you got to play them, and whoever gets that second wild card spot is going to have a rough wild card game going up against the Dodgers or Giants. I think it's going to be the Dodgers, but so it's going to be an exciting last month of the season. And like you said, it seems like yesterday we were looking at this team back in April, and all of a sudden we're in September. So time flies.
It's insane. But Lucas, I appreciate you joining me today. And that's all the time we've got for Locked On Reds. You can follow Lucas for this series right there at his Twitter handle. Let me see if I can point in the right direction. Yep. at LJ Fastball. And you can follow it's LO_Cardinals?
You bet. At LO_Cardinals on Twitter and Instagram.
Finally learned that after we had a older handle that we're not
Yeah.
going to mention because it'll get people confused. And for Cardinals fans, you can follow me at Jeff Carr with 3 Fs, and we'll see what happens come Monday.